Stephen. Now, first, the CEO of the world's biggest dairy exporter has apologised after a food safety scare that's seen a range of dairy imports from New Zealand banned in China and Russia.
Yeah, this is a really big story for New Zealand in particular. Over the week, Fonterra said that up to 1,000 tonnes of milk powder used in products such as infant formula, sports drinks and other products had been contaminated with the bacteria that can cause botulism. Now, China and Russia responded by banning the import of all milk powder products from New Zealand, as well as some other dairy produce as well. Fonterra's CEO has travelled to China. He's apologised for this scare and denied there was any cover-up in the lead up to these revelations. It's a big blow, though, for New Zealand's economy, which relies heavily on dairy imports. It accounts for a quarter of the country's exports. The country has a reputation for quality food. That's something the government is now trying to protect. They say they'll be working to restore confidence in the sector.
When you've got a company that's our largest company, our largest brand, our largest exporter, that is the flagship for New Zealand, and your whole business is about food safety and food quality, you'd think they'd take such a precautionary view to these things and say if it's testing for some reason in an odd way, that it would just be discarded until they were absolutely sure it's right. Now, that's something the Chief Executive will have to answer one day.
Let's take a look at the markets now, and a positive start to the trading week here in Europe, but only just the markets opening very slightly in the green. Interestingly, here in Paris, the dairy manufacturer Danone shares are down over 1%. They had to recall some products over that scandal in New Zealand we've just been talking about. Now, along with Coca-Cola, they say any danger in their products would have been neutralised in their manufacturing process, but still hitting shares there. Also, on the Asian markets, dairy producers in China, shares are up there in the hope that they might be able to move into that area of the market now being hit by New Zealand. You can see the Shanghai Composite up by almost 1% there. The Nikkei down because of falling values of the dollar against the yen.
Now, the aerospace company EADS is being urged to sell its stake in the French defence company Dassault.
Yeah, a report in today's Financial Times says the hedge fund TCI has written to the chief of EADS to demand that it sells its stake in the maker of Rafale jets. Now, a letter to Tom Enders says the company's stake in Dassault is a poor use of capital with limited strategic value. It's a direct challenge to how the owner of Airbus is run after Mr. Enders said that governments had no say in how they make their decisions. France still holds a 12% stake in EADS and has a right to be consulted by the company in any changes to what it does with its stake in Dassault. No major reaction on the EADS share price yet this morning, though. It's up by about 0.1%.
Turning our attention now to the latest twist in a patent battle between two technology giants.
The US government has overturned a ban on the import of certain iPhone and iPad makers into the United States. It came after a previous ruling that had said that these products infringed Samsung's patents. Now, President Obama's trade representative, Michael Froman, made the decision because he said of its competitive effect on the US economy. Rochelle Harrison-Pless has the details.
It's advantage Apple in the battle of the smartphone giants. In a blow to bitter rival Samsung, a ban on the sale of certain Apple products in the US has been vetoed by the Obama administration. Following an earlier ruling by the International Trade Commission, or ITC, the ban was to cover older devices, some of which are no longer sold in the US. They include some cheaper iPhone 4 and iPhone 3 models, as well as the iPad 3G and iPad 2 3G. In a letter to the ITC, the US trade representative said the decision was based on the effect on competitive conditions in the US economy and the effect on US consumers. Such action is rare. The last time a president reversed an ITC decision was in 1987. The veto will allow Apple to continue selling its cheaper iPhone models, an area where it faces stiff competition from Samsung. Apple may rule the roost in the US, but Samsung is the #1 smartphone manufacturer on the world stage. In the competitive smartphone and tablet market, the tech giants have a bitter history. They're engaged in dozens of other legal battles in 10 countries. Last year, a court ruled that Samsung owed Apple $1 billion in damages for infringing patents, an award that was later slashed to $598 million.
And finally, Stephen, there's a new way to see Paris.
Yes, the first commercial airship tours for tourists flew over the skies of Paris on Sunday. Airship Paris is offering tours of the area around the city, including the Palace at Versailles, at an altitude of around 300 metres. The ship itself, as you can see, is pretty large. It's about the size of a 5-storey building and the length of an Airbus A380. Quite a lot fewer seats on board, though. Just 12 people can ride in the airship at one time. An expensive seat, though. The minimum charge, €209 for a half-hour journey.
Ooh, okay. All right. Well, we'll have to see then. Thank you very much, Stephen. That's it for the business news. Time now for web news, and we start with online reactions to the boss of Twitter apologising to female victims of online abuse.
The abuse they've received is simply not acceptable. It's not acceptable in the real world, and it's not acceptable on Twitter. On Saturday, the boss of Twitter UK, Tony Wang, said sorry to women who have been threatened or insulted on the social network. The British police are currently investigating 8 allegations of abuse via social media. One of the complaints was lodged by feminist campaigner and blogger Caroline Criado Perez, who fought for the face of novelist Jane Austen to appear on £10 banknotes. When her campaign came to a successful conclusion, she received a deluge of rape and death threats on the microblogging site. But the blogger refused to be intimidated by the abuse, and she challenged Twitter to face up to its responsibilities, denouncing its procedures for reporting abusive content, saying they were too slow and too complex. An opinion shared by the some 125,000 web users who signed this online petition, calling on the social network to take action towards preventing and tackling abuse more efficiently, notably by simplifying the system for reporting these cyber threats and malicious content. And it would seem Twitter has taken the request on board. The microblogging site has announced the in-tweet report abuse button, which is currently only available on its app for one mobile phone brand, is to be added to the Twitter website and to platforms used on other mobile devices. Russian Sports Minister Vitaly Mutko has confirmed that athletes coming to Russia to compete in the 2014 Winter Olympic Games must adhere to the country's strict laws on homosexuality throughout the duration of the competition, saying, quote, "No one is forbidding a sportsman with a non-traditional sexual orientation from coming to Sochi, but if he goes onto the street and starts propagandizing it, then of course he will be held accountable." His words have sparked anger and outrage across the web. For many social networkers, his warning violates the spirit of the Olympics and is quite simply unacceptable. Web users have slammed this stance and are calling on the IOC to exert more pressure on Moscow so that gay athletes and tourists can concentrate on or enjoy the games without fear of arrest or deportation. Some are even calling for an actual boycott of the games. Radical measures which they believe could prompt the Russian government to rethink the homophobic legislation currently in force. Not everyone thinks this is the best move, however, like John Carlos, for example, who's probably best known for standing on the medals podium at the 1968 Olympic Games, alongside fellow African-American Tommy Smith, with their gloved fists in the air as a silent protest against racial discrimination in the US. The former champion thinks athletes, and particularly gay athletes, should attend the Russian Games so their voices can be heard and they can perhaps contribute to change. Patrick Burke expresses a similar sentiment in this article posted to the site BuzzFeed, where he says history remembers the athletes who showed up. What would Wi-Fi signals look like if you could see them? Nikolai Lamb has explored this very question on the site mydeals.com. The American artist teamed up with a former NASA scientist to produce these visualizations of Wi-Fi around Washington. The illustrations are based on scientific data and show the shapes formed by the signals, with the sub-channels used to transmit data displayed in different colors. A two-headed turtle has become an online sensation in the US. Named Thelma and Louise, the animal that lives at San Antonio Zoo in Texas now has its own Facebook page with over 4,200 fans. An amazing little creature whose popularity looks set to stay. NASA's rover Curiosity landed on Mars in August 2012. And the American Space Agency has put together this clip showcasing 12 months on the red planet in 2 minutes. The video, which features 548 black and white shots taken by the robot showing it collecting samples of Martian soil and sand, for example, will no doubt be a massive hit with space exploration enthusiasts everywhere.
Time for a short break now. The headlines are coming right up. Stay tuned to France 24.